This podcast is meant for general health information and is not meant to override any medical advice. All questions will be screened and not contain any personal information. If you want a private consultation, contact us via positivechoice.org or you can contact your provider directly. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Positive Choice Wellness Podcast. My name is Anneliese and I'm an exercise physiologist and nutritionist.
And my name's Melanie. I'm also an exercise physiologist and nutritionist.
And today we're going to talk about one of our favorite subjects, which is
strength training.
Strength training.
I love strength training. I'm a huge proponent of it. Love it. Didn't used to love it, but I love it now. So it's just, I don't know, it's just exciting to talk about because I found my love for strength training. So I could talk about it for days.
Yes, I think this is one of our shared loves. And it's something that we both really believe in as far as overall health and wellness and the importance of having this in part of your routine.
Exactly. And I can't knock the importance of it. And maybe it's just because of my experience of working with people in their 90s, which amazingly, I have a lot of those clients. Well, I did pre-pandemic. We're still in a pandemic, by the way, when we're recording this. But pre-pandemic, I was training a lot of people in their 90s. And you could see how important it is because of how much mobility they would regain or be able to do, you know, and it's just beautiful to watch, if I will say that.
Absolutely. And it's also fun, you know, when people have hobbies or activities that they really like doing, you know, injury is inevitable as a human being, and strength training is one of the things that is really going to help you be able to keep your strength and maintain doing the activities you love to do and keep you out of pain.
Yeah, and if you fall on your floor in the middle of your living room with nothing around you, you can get off the floor. So there's that.
So important.
Yeah, and I say it almost sort of jokey, but I don't mean it in a joke. I swear I'm being completely serious about that. You don't want to be the help I fallen commercial. You really want to make sure you have the capability of being able to get yourself off the floor. And it's something I always ask, this is like a rhetorical question, which is, if you were to fall on your floor in the middle of your living room with nothing around you, could you get off the floor? And the second question I ask is if yes, but not very well, because I hear that sometimes. Say, okay, can you get out of a chair without using your arms or armrests? You know, things to think about, things that we take for granted that require strength that we don't think about because we don't have to do them all the time.
Right. And that's where our independence as human beings lies as well. Mm-hmm. You know, we know that when we get hit during times of our life where our health kind of fails us, either temporarily or we're dealing with something new and chronic, that when you lose your strength and ability to move around, you lose your independence.
Yeah.
And we all want that. We all want the ability to be able to do our daily activities with ease and enjoy them.
Yes. You don't want life to be hard. You want it to be easy. So I guess the best place to start then would be just to define strength training, what it is, what it entails. Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions on what strength training actually is, because I hear it all the time. all the time. So there is an actual definition for strength training.
Absolutely. And the way that I always define that is whatever movement you're doing, you have enough resistance to where you get fatigued at 15 or less repetitions.
So how many times you repeat that movement?
That's right. And it doesn't matter, you know, if you're using body weight or you're using free weights or bands, but once you are able to do more than 15 repetitions of something, you have moved out of that strength building zone and you're more into your endurance zone, which is all well and good. They both serve their purpose. But if we're talking about building that muscle tissue and gaining that strength, then we got to get to that fatigue.
So what you're saying is if you ride a bike or go hiking or swimming, it's not strength training.
That's right.
And I'm a swimmer, so I'm bringing that up because I hear that all the time. And as a swimmer, I can tell you it's not strength training. But if you do like water dumbbells, like those buoyancy dumbbells, you can absolutely make a water activity into strength training. But unless you're using those buoyancy resistance type things, you're basically just swimming, and that's cardio, which is great for its own intents and purposes. It's just not strength training.
That's right. So we'll just disclaimer that right off the bat that cardio is awesome for you.
Amazing.
And yes, you need to be doing it. Don't get it out of your routine. And we will cover that on another episode, how wonderful cardio is for you. But for the purposes of this, we're going to talk about the benefits of strength training in particular. And if we're wanting those benefits, then things like hiking up a hill, although you may get fatigued, it may be tiring. If you can go over 15 steps at a time without a 1 to 2 minute break, then you are not getting those strength training benefits.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the thing is, like with bikes, for example, especially if you have one at home rather than a bike out in the real world, on the real road. But if you're using like some sort of stationary or recumbent bike at home where you're adding increments of resistance, it gives you the illusion that you're adding resistance to the point where you're going to build strength. But reality is you're not. It's not nearly significant enough. You might build it initially just to get into the shape that you need to be to do it. But after that, you're just doing it out of routine and for cardio benefit.
That's right. So now, what if someone is listening and they're like, okay, that you've convinced me.
I hope I did. Do it.
Where do we start? What would be a good place to start at?
You lay on the floor and you cry. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, you can.
You can.
We are not here to judge the things that you need.
We do not judge. It's just that won't make you get stronger. It'll just emotionally maybe get it out. But no, the thing is, a lot of people really get stuck on that. Where do I start? I don't know what to do. Where do I begin? Not to like drop a plug, but we do have videos on our YouTube channel that have all of the beginner kind of strength training stuff you could do. It's like someone telling you what to do and you can follow their instructions. But let's just pretend for a moment that doesn't exist. And maybe you just don't have access to that, or maybe you don't have internet. But if you're listening to this, you probably have internet. I don't know. But whatever. For the sake of argument, you don't. And you want to start doing some form of strength training. A lot of it, I think, is the best place to start is body weight.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to do a squat. It can be getting up out of a chair repeatedly. Because there's no really wrong way to get out of a chair unless you're using those armrests with your hands. And that's an assisting move, and that's not going to benefit you. But if you try, cross your hands over your chest, get up out of that chair repeatedly, there you go. You're already starting strength training without even realizing it.
Absolutely. And the thing to keep in mind there is press through your heels.
Mm-hmm.
So the mark of a really good squat or getting out of the chair is pressing through your heels so that you engage your glutes, and then it also helps take the pressure off of your knees.
Yes.
So that's a great thing. Find a chair in your house, press your heels down into the ground, and stand up without using your arms.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just basic. Like, you don't need to have knowledge of strength training to get out of a chair. So it works really well for everybody. And then, you know, if you're like, well, okay, that's good. I got legs covered. Now what? Because there's rest of me. Yes, there is. So there's a few that have some technique involved, like a push-up and planking does have technique involved, but doesn't require equipment. But does require a little bit of form and technique, so you're not going to injure your shoulders or anything like that. And for the plank, just to make sure you're engaging your abs, you want to make sure you have proper form. But if you're thinking, you know, well, I could do something, press your palms of your hands together right in front of your chest like you're going to pray, but just press really, 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 really hard. And that's a chest press. And you can't screw that up. It's pretty easy not to do that. So I don't know how you would. I really can't think of how you could screw that up. So that's another one. You could get upper body, chest, and shoulders and some arms in there, and it's no equipment, and it's beginner. You start from basics. And don't be ashamed. There's nothing wrong with that.
And don't be afraid of starting push-ups against a wall either. So just keep those hands at chest height and get yourself against the wall and press yourself away from the wall, keep your shoulders away from your ears, and then move to your kitchen countertops when the wall gets easy. So now we've got a nice upper body move, we've got our lower body move.
Yep. And, you know, obviously core strength is important, and I'm a no excuses kind of person. I've already mentioned I've trained people in their 90s, so there's a lot of chair stuff that we'll do. And you can do chair ab work. You could sit in a chair and strengthen your abs without ever having to get up out of a chair. If you just sit on the edge of your chair, put your hands across your chest, and then lean back, but don't touch the back of your chair and just hold it, that's like a chair plank. No form required. You just lean back and don't touch the back of your chair. Done. And you covered the abs. you've already got like practically a whole body routine just now with no equipment.
Right.
Just starting basic.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yes. And, do as many as you can. Mm-hmm. And then once you can do 15 in a row, then you got to figure out a way to make it harder.
Exactly. Because eventually, you get your body weights, eventually get used to it because it's you. So you do have to add resistance. And that's what's crucial. And our degree is founded on the concept of the principle of overload, which really just states that you need to overload the muscle tissue in order to see change and benefit within the muscle to grow and get better and stronger. You have to challenge yourself, basically. So in large, flowy words, it means challenge yourself. So if you're struggling to figure out how you can do that, there's no rules. Like we have this conception in our brain of, I have to use weights, or I have to use bands, or I have to use heavy things, and you don't. You can just use random stuff around your house. If you have a bunch of heavy soup cans, use those. Put them in a backpack. Put it on your back. There, you got a heavy squat. You can add equipment to your life. I was telling Anneliese earlier before we started the podcast how I was MacGyvering this pull-up bar that we have. We have this like doorway pull-up bar, and I put ankle weights on it, and that was my bicep curl bar because we don't have that kind of equipment at my house. So I was getting really creative, but it's okay because it still works. It's still effective.
That's right. And we are in a pandemic, and Melanie is not going to let that stand in her way at
Absolutely
all.
Not. No. I mean, I don't have pets or children, but if I did, I'd pick them up too. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And one thing that I tell all of my personal clients is that for a home gym, the best thing you can do is order yourself some resistance bands. Mm-hmm. Resistance bands are inexpensive. They do not take up a lot of space. And because you can either, take them at their longest, and you can shorten your stance in between, then one band can get you through a few different strength jumps versus if you invest in hand weights, which I'm all for those, but they are expensive and you're going to strength train out of them very quickly.
Yes.
So if you start with 5 pounds, the goal is to get stronger, right? So you probably
overload.
Progressive overload. Yeah, so you probably won't use those 5 pounds for very long, and then they become defunct, and then you have to keep reinvesting. But a good strength training band set, that's going to carry you for a long time.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I own bands. I think they're great. Like they're so versatile. You can travel with them. I virtually trained someone. She was on vacation and she brought her bands with her. So I trained her in her daughter's living room essentially via computer. It was amazing. And it's so cool how portable bands can be, and you can do it anywhere, really.
That's dedication right there.
I know. She's awesome. She rocked it. She'll know who she is when she listens to this too. But there's so many opportunities to incorporate strength training into your day. You can use literally anything in your environment to add resistance to what you're doing. It's just a matter of pushing past the point of discomfort. I find people tend to cut things short when they feel uncomfortable because it's uncomfortable. Clearly, we don't like to feel that way, so we just don't,
And that's a learned skill. Mm-hmm. I think we don't get taught that very well. That feeling uncomfortable with exercise is a skill.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, if you don't have that skill, if you haven't spent time pushing your body and living in that discomfort, the inclination is to stop. But that's part of the learning process, just like your muscles learning what you're doing and adapting by creating more muscle tissue.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing, this is like a constant question that I get is, well, how much do I lift? How much do I do? And my answer is not anything anyone will like, which is, I don't know. Like, how heavy should it be? I don't know. I don't know how strong you are. I have no idea. I can't make that up. I can't pick a random number and go, 8. That's what you need to lift. Like, no. I don't know because everyone is different. I have a really good analogy that I do with my hands that no one can see because we're not actually filming this, but basically, when you have a muscle contraction, you have some fibers moving, only some. And when you get stronger, you incorporate more fibers into that movement. So more are doing the job rather than less. So that's how you get stronger. And it entirely depends on what you do in your day-to-day life that will dictate how strong you are. So I don't know, and no one knows. You can ask any personal trainer. I don't care. Ask any of them. They will not know. They're just going to pick a random number. If they tell you a weight to pick up, they're guessing. And they won't know until you lift them and go, oh, that's too heavy, or oh, that's easy. And then they go from there. We have to have a baseline.
That's right. And that is where we can go back to the 15 repetitions thing. So when you're feeling out where you should start, go with pick up a weight and see how many you can do. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that you want to be aware of is that if you haven't been strength training, use the first 2 to 3 weeks to go ultra light. That's not the time that you want to be push, because a lot of things have to adapt. It's not just your muscle, your tendons, your connections to the muscles.
Neuron connections.
Neural
control. Yay. Big words.
Yes. All of those things have to adapt and change. And you got to get used to having good form, because good form is important. So give yourself about 2 to 3 weeks. And after that, you've built yourself a nice foundation, and then you're ready to go a little bit heavier.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more with that. It's baby steps. You have to start basic and build up. Even if you're like, but I used to. I don't care if you used to. You haven't been. Start small.
That's right. And I also cannot stress enough the importance of having professional guidance. If you feel pretty comfortable with all of this and you just want to start out some body weight, that is totally understandable. But doing things like some of our specialized videos, those can help guide you around limitations. Mm-hmm. Working with a professional around getting a strength training plan started is absolutely invaluable. You don't have to invest in a personal trainer for the rest of your life, but
we don't mind, but
right. I will absolutely train you the rest of your life. But the goal is, and I've worked with plenty of people who are really good at working out on their own. And what they want is, here are my specific issues. Here are my specific limitations. I want a workout that I can have and grow with. Mm-hmm. And that is well worth the investment. And we do that here. But all I will say is make sure that your trainer has a background in science, that they have a background in some of the things that are particular to you, and vet them. Mm-hmm. Because cost doesn't associate experience or knowledge in this field.
Yes. And like on some social media platforms, there's those fitness people out there who are just people who are fitness enthusiasts. A lot of the time, they don't actually have any background in it. They just work out a lot, so they might as well start a blog. And that's great, and that's fine. They're allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't mean they're an expert source. So as Anneliese said, it's a good idea to vet where you're getting your information. It's a good idea to vet who you're working with, because liability-wise, if they're not fully understanding of how the human body works physiologically and biomechanically, you could get very injured. So it's always a good idea to just, run a little mini background check, essentially, but on their credentials.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think we have some questions for today.
Well, I wanted to follow up with one more thing. Because we talked about strength training, but didn't talk about how often they should do it.
Oh, yes. That's important.
Questions. But we should probably explain, you should do it. But, okay, we're done. Bye. We should explain how much. And that's a good question, too. Because I do get a lot of those questions. Well, how often should I be strength training? How much? That is a great question. It's a very versatile answer.
It's 2 to 3 days a week, mm-hmm. and you need 48 hours break in between.
Yep. You need your muscles to recover. You want your muscles to heal, because one thing with your muscles is when you do strength training, they actually have to break down to build up. So what you're doing is you're telling the brain, hey, this is too heavy for the muscle to do because it broke. Because that's what happens when you strength train. You're ripping muscle fibers, and your brain goes, let's reinforce that. So next time that won't happen. And it's just a progression of building up in strength that way. So that's why you do need a couple of days to recover, because that's what's happening when you're sore. When you're sore, your body is healing. It's not a good idea. Cardio aside, that's its own thing, but if you're doing strength training, it's not a good idea to re-exercise those same muscles you just worked on strength training wise with another bout of strength training. Like, don't do squats 2 days in a row. Not a good idea.
That's right. Because then essentially over time, what you're doing is you're breaking down the muscle, allowing it to only build itself back up a little bit before you break it down again.
Yes.
So that's usually how injury happens, how fatigue happens. So don't do it. You know, if you work your legs, you got to wait 48 hours to work them again.
Yeah. And for the record, there's no time limit. Like, cardio has 30 to 60 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Strength training, no, there's no time limit. Don't latch yourself into a time limit. It's as long as it takes you to get it done.
That's right. And on that same note, strength training is your investment in your long-term mobility. So don't get caught up in how many calories you're burning during a strength training plan or how fast you see your progress. You will see progress, but this is a lifelong commitment to maintaining your muscle mass, maintaining your strength.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be discouraged, because that's the thing I see a lot is well, I don't see any progress. I guess it's not working. It's working. It's definitely working. Strength doesn't look building strength doesn't look the same as building fat. We just have this assumption it's going to look the same. Well, I clearly noticed it's not the same. It's not the same. So you want to focus more on continuously improving on your routine, and the results will eventually show themselves. It just takes a little bit of time. It's not an overnight process.
That's right.
All right, now we can go to questions. But we do have some questions, and we offer this up to anybody. So if you want to reach us on our website or wherever we kind of proposition you for questions, but you're welcome to ask us anything. But we have a couple that are kind of relevant to the topic today. So the first one is from Mary, and she says, I'm 69 years old. Is there still hope for me to get strong? Do I need to keep my weights low when I strength train?
Such a good question.
Yeah.
And something I hear over and over and over again is that somehow when we reach a certain age, magically we can't build muscle tissue anymore. Mm-hmm. And let me just tell you, that is absolutely false.
Yep.
You can start strength training at any age.
Yes.
And you can regain your strength. You can regain your muscle tissue. Mm-hmm. And we've both seen it.
Yeah. I mean, I had a patient that I was working with that I think I was having to do 60-pound lat pull downs. He was 90 years old doing 60-pound lat pull downs, which you wouldn't expect. We didn't start there. He started at 30. And we built up to that. And it was, like I said, beautiful to watch. It's really exciting to see that when you see that the progress being made regardless of how old they are.
Absolutely. And I've had similar. I have one favorite client who I've had for years, and she first came in wanting to work with me off of her physical therapy plan. And she just wanted to do these very small moves with 3-pound, 2-pound weights. And I was like, okay, well, that's what you want to do. And we did that for a little while, and then she took a break, and then she came back, and she said, I want to start working with you again. And I was like, okay, but we're doing things my way now. And we're not doing these 3-pound dumbbell things. And I got her up to 20 pounds in each hand, doing deadlifts, doing rows with a 25-pound weight. And, she was in her late 70s.
Any age. It's a mind over matter thing at that point. You just have to put your mind to it. You can absolutely do it. So don't use age as a discouraging factor. I mean, there's so many world's oldest bodybuilders out there in their 70s and 80s. It's so impressive. Life goals.
Absolutely. And if you guys don't believe us, just stick it into your Google search, and you'll find many.
Yeah. So we have another question. So this is from Ben, and he says, I have chronic knee pain and it's hard to exercise. What do I need to do in order to add strength training to my routine without hurting my knees?
Oh, I love this question so much.
Knee pain's common. It's a very common thing. And I understand, I'm laughing because I'm I get you. Yep, I love that kind of question too, because that's the thing I hear all the time.
Yes. People generally come in with one of 3 things: knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain.
Yep.
And I think this is personally my most favorite part of what I do when I work with people is that we get stuck in cycles of pain, and then we believe that we cannot get out of it. And the really great news, and I want you all to hear this all the way down into your soul, is
feed your soul
all the way down to the core of your entire world, is that you can get out of pain through appropriate exercise.
Yep.
And that includes knee issues. And with Ben's question in particular, it's not that you will always be able to jump into a full strength training routine if you have chronic pain issues. And this is where I really, really would urge you to A, just start moving, and B, work with someone who can guide you into this. So if you have chronic knee pain, the first thing that I would do is we would put you through a bunch of tests, movement tests, and I would see what movement causes pain, what movement doesn't cause pain, and how are we going to stretch the areas that we need to stretch, and how are we going to strengthen the areas that we need to strengthen. And you will move up to doing harder exercises, and exercises that maybe you thought you just would never do again.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, another thing that, because I'm thinking through like the scrolling in my brain of all the people that I've worked with, and I was working with someone who had a meniscus tear, and if you're unfamiliar with that, there's a little pad of cartilage between your knee bone and, like, you know, your tibia and your your fibula, not your fibula. Oh my God, femur and tibia and fibula. Anyways, there's a pad of cartilage there.
Look at, she remembers her basic anatomy.
I just was mixing up the words in my brain, apparently.
I mean, I'm impressed. This stuff goes out the window so fast if you don't practice it.
But the pad of cartilage that sits there is kind of the moving point. It allows your bones to glide against each other without hurting each other. And sometimes you can tear that from just tweaking it, rotating the wrong way, hurting yourself. And it causes a lot of pain when you're moving. And you know, knee pain can come in all shapes and sizes. It's not just limited to, oh, my knees hurt. Like, there's a few reasons why you can have knee pain from just gaining weight, because for every extra pound you have on your body, it's an extra 4 pounds of pressure in your knees.
Oh, what a punishment.
I know.
My gosh.
I know. It's so unfair. It's like there's that piece. You could have just a ligament issue, which could be like ACL, PCL, MCL, LCL. There's a whole bunch of different ligaments in your legs.
All the CLs.
All the CLs. You also have the meniscus, which could tear, which is another thing. And, you know, just any issues in the knee. Arthritis is another one. There's a slew of them. And what I find is, regardless of what the issue is in your knee, if you can do some light strength training around the joint to focus on those muscles that support the joint, then you can start moving into the bigger, more complex movements if you build like a base of strength. It's build a foundation before you build the house. You don't build a house in a swamp, right? It's going to sink.
Absolutely.
So that just, I was scrolling through my brain because I was like, oh yeah, I've worked with people with knee pain too. And it's a process. Although if you have arthritis, I will say, if you're doing anything to strengthen your body and you have arthritis in a joint of any type, whether it's your knee or shoulder or whatever, movement does help.
Absolutely. And arthritis is tricky, and we could go down a rabbit hole here, but we won't. But arthritis is tricky because you cannot fully get rid of the pain because now it's part of your joint. But studies show over and over and over again that the pain will be dramatically lessened if you are moving that joint regularly.
Yeah. More synovial fluid production in the joints and makes them glide better.
Yes, and blood flow to the muscles around it, strengthening all the muscles around the joint.
Exactly. So don't let pain be a limiting factor if it's something like arthritis, but obviously there's other sources of pain. You should absolutely be like, oh, that hurts. If something really legitimately hurts you, don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah, that's right. Start learning the difference between pain and muscle fatigue.
Yes, there is a difference.
And then pay attention.
Yeah, if you have an ow reaction, that's pain. So just don't do that, because that's your body's way of saying stop.
Oh, that hurts when you do that? Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah. I'm thinking, I was subbing for someone in a class, and I was having the class do squats, and I always make the disclaimer, like, if anything causes you pain, just sit it out, don't do it, modify. And we're doing squats, and this woman, she was doing them so incorrectly, and she looks at me and goes, my knees hurt. And I was just like, don't do it. Just sit down. Like, just because I'm telling you to do a squat and it hurts doesn't mean you continue to do the squat. I'm not going to take a personal offense if you choose not to do that.
That's right. And there are many other things to do other than squats. So
I think back to that all the time.
So, we got to say that disclaimer because there's people who are very pain avoidant. And then there's people that are like, pain means nothing. I will do everything.
Yes. But I made a disclaimer, and then she tells me her knee hurts after I've made it. So, just know, if it just you don't even have to say anything. Just sit down. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to, why aren't you squatting?
There's no judgment.
No.
Well, judgment.
At least with us. We don't know about other people, of course. But, But with that being said, it's about that time.
It is. Well, thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions about anything that we went over today, you can go to our website, which is positivechoice.org, and click the Contact Us button.
Yep.
Or you can leave a comment in the comments section, and we will either answer it on a future episode, or if it's a simple question, then maybe we'll get right back to you.
Yeah, exactly. Make it easy. But regardless, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and until next time.
Until next time.